As a first-time home buyer, or honestly just a homeowner in general, doing DIY projects is such a great way to not only personalize your space, but also build equity in your home while still keeping costs down, not hiring contractors, not paying top dollar for things that you can really do on your own. So I've compiled a list of what I deem to be the best DIY projects to do as a homeowner, especially someone who's, not a general contractor. Let's dig into it. I tried to break up this info kind of in like a most affordable, like mid-range costs, and then like maybe the higher end DIY projects that you could get into. And so I'm gonna start with the more affordable DIY projects that you can get into that, like I said, will not only help, personalize your space and kind of give you the opportunity to put your touch on your home, but some of these things will also add equity to your home. And not only equity, but in this first example, I'm gonna give efficiency as well. So first thing I have on my list, ceiling windows and doors. Not ceiling windows. Okay, maybe not a great joke. Ceiling windows and doors. And what I mean by that is, things like adding weather stripping, replacing weather stripping on the bottom of your doors. Right above the threshold, there's like a little piece of, rubber, whatever material it may be, it can be different. Things like that, those over time that can really wear away, you can start to crack. And all that's doing then is letting air into your home, whether it's hot air when you're trying to keep your home cool or cold air in the winter when you're trying to keep your house warm. If every door in your house has very old weather stripping and it's cracked and it's letting the outside temp in, if you go around and replace all those, the difference it's going to make is honestly huge. And it's such an easy fix. It's underrated. And honestly, it's probably something that a lot of people don't really think about. I'm sure not a lot of people are thinking about the condition of the weather stripping on the bottom of their doors. However, you'd be surprised how much cold air that is actually letting into your home. And right in line with weather stripping is caulking. That is a huge way to seal gaps and prevent drafts coming in, whether that be in windows or at the doors. But those are two examples of some really inexpensive ways to kind of improve the efficiency of your home. As far as personalization, maybe not that much. Maybe you add some weather stripping on the bottom of the door that looks better than what was there before. But efficiency in particular on this one is huge. And again, these are very easy things to do. Caulking, it's annoying for sure, but no offense to the pros out there, but it doesn't take a pro to do it well enough to where it will suffice and actually make a difference. Caulking around windows too, I feel like, that's probably something that a lot of people don't think about, and maybe they don't even realize that a lot of cold air could be coming in the winter because of that. And I think a lot of people just assume like, oh, we got older windows maybe and they're just like drafty and it is what it is. But it's really easy to fix that. There's a really simple solution to it. And also it's a lot better than if maybe say you're putting the plastic wrap on the windows, which I'm not knocking it. I've done it and it absolutely works. But I can understand how for a lot of people, that's not really the look they're going for. It definitely, it doesn't look classy by any means. It definitely doesn't look great. It doesn't like improve the look of the windows, but it obviously works. So there's no shame in doing it. But I would implore a homeowner to try and seal up those gaps first and see how much of a difference that actually makes before thinking that you need to put the plastic on the windows or even, replacing the windows entirely. Something else that's very affordable, very DIYable, literally anybody can be doing this, is installing new hardware. And what I mean by hardware is anything from old doorknobs, cabinet handles, and even faucets, and switching those out for a more modern style, something that looks better, something that fits the vibe better of the house. I think hardware is something that easily gets like glossed over, and maybe you don't realize the impact that it would have, like how much it can freshen up a kitchen if you do all new cabinet pulls on everything in the kitchen. It's a small change, takes no time at all, no effort. All you need is probably a screwdriver, but it can really make a huge impact. If you've got like some really old style cabinetry anywhere in the house, and maybe it's got some really old hardware on there, you'd be surprised how how much you can modernize those cabinets just by putting on new hardware and not doing anything else with the cabinets. However, if you really didn't like the look of any cabinets or anything like that, you can and should, if you're willing to, go one step further and you can paint those cabinets or paint the walls. Painting cabinets, I've done it a bunch. Honestly, it's always a bigger undertaking than most people think, especially if they've never done it, because it's tedious and it just takes a lot of time. And there is like a technique to it in how you apply the paint to not make it look bad, But I mean, I'm a heavy advocate for paint. I've said it before and I'm probably gonna say it forever on this channel. The impact that painting can make on a room, whether it's the walls or just the cabinets, or even painting trim, window trim, base trim, like it'll freshen that room up so much. It's insane. And anybody can paint. It may not look great. There's definitely a reason people get paid to be professional painters. They make it look really easy and they do a really good job. But I don't think anybody should be discouraged from painting. I just think maybe the best tip I could give with painting is that expect that it's going to take a long time. And also 2 coats, always 2 coats. If you do 1 coat, it's going to look awful and you're going to be pissed and you're going to be like, why is this so bad? Because you always got to do at least 2 coats. But if your budget doesn't allow for replacing cabinets, doing totally new cabinets, refreshing them with a coat of paint is a very budget friendly option, and it will truly give an insane amount of new life to that room, to those cabinets. And when it does come to painting, the general rule of thumb, I believe, what I've learned, what I've seen, what I believe in, is always choose neutral tones to brighten up a space and save those super bold colors for accent walls or maybe like a specialty room. Unless you know what you want and you have a vision, like, go ahead, do your thing. Obviously, it's your home. Personalize it however you want. I just believe in general, and especially if you're taking into account resale, it's probably always a safe bet to just stick with more neutral things that look really great when they're done. And before I get into my last point on the more budget-friendly options, I just want to say, what's up? My name is Paul Winkleman. I am an agent on the To the Twin Cities team here in the Twin Cities of Minnesota. This video of this channel, everything is for DIYers, my first time home buyers, and those people just looking to purchase a fixer-upper, that people that want to put in the work themselves and gain that equity and reap the benefits of that equity by doing these projects yourself. As a DIYer, to my core, I fully believe in the benefit of not only being able to do these things, but also the financial benefits that you can see from doing these things. My goal is to show you that these things are not that scary, they're not that hard, they're not as daunting as you think, and the benefits you can see financially from a little elbow grease is pretty insane. Also, especially for first-time home buyers, if all your focus is on these fixer-upper properties, you're just like in a different category than all these other buyers out there that are looking for move-in ready homes. These are the homes that have so much competition, multiple offers, going way over asking price. If you don't have the luxury of being in that budget, honestly, I think that's better for you. You're facing less competition and you have way more negotiating power when you're making these offers and closing that deal on the home. So if that sounds interesting to you, if that's something you're looking for, if you have any questions, if you just want to say what's up, reach out to me, paul@tothetwincities.com. Send me an email, reach out to me on Instagram, comment on this video on the YouTube. However you want to do it, I will see it. We can talk, and I'd be more than happy to even just sit down and answer any questions that you may have about this process. Now, back to my amazing list. The next thing I have is upgrading light fixtures. I see so many houses with outdated light fixtures, and it kind of blows my mind because I'm like, you do realize how much this whole room would change if you literally just got rid of, grandma's fan with the lights and the, all that and the pulley, it's like, what are we doing? It's 2025. Update those light fixtures. Get something classy. Give it some flavor, a little zest. Add some zest to that room. Swapping out light fixtures, definitely, in comparison to doing hardware on cabinets, it is a little more work. There's a couple more tools involved, a little more finagling. It can get a little annoying doing this, but That is by no means to discourage anybody. It's all very doable. YouTube is a great place, great resource to figure out how to do those things. And honestly, swapping those outdated fixtures for new ones, like, instantly updates a room. Like, it's absolutely crazy. You'd be surprised how much the vibe can change in a room just by doing a brand new light fixture. And I know that when it comes to electrical, that can be pretty daunting for a lot of people, myself included. I try to refrain from working on electrical as much as I can, as I'm not an electrician. Light fixtures are usually easier than like swapping out, you know, outlets or something like that. Usually just 3 wires, sometimes 2. You got your hot, your neutral, and your ground. And there's instructions with those light fixtures. They'll kind of tell you which one goes where, what color it might be, which you can't rely completely on the color of the wire to know which one is which. But usually in the instructions, they do a pretty good job of helping you figure that out. And honestly, I think like the wiring aspect for sure is like the most daunting, maybe the scariest. It's probably where people are most reluctant to swap out the light fixture. But like I said, between YouTube and the instructions that come with the light fixture, I think you'll be all right. The actual install of the light fixture, that can get a little tough, especially if you're just doing it on your own and you like you don't have a good idea of how this goes back in. Might be helpful to have somebody at least hold the light for you while you do that, so you're not getting weak as heck with one hand trying to like figure out how to get the light fixture in or whatever. So if you have a buddy, a partner that's willing to help, that would definitely serve you well, I do believe. And with a lot of modern light fixtures, a lot of them are dimmable, which is, I think, huge too. I think that really adds to kind of the vibe and the personalization of the room. Just the ability to, dim a light so it's not just on 100% or completely off. Installing dimmer switches, that might be like a whole other conversation. But I think, if you successfully install the light fixture and wire that up correctly, you'll feel pretty confident and be like, okay, yeah, I could check out the dimmer switch. Like, how hard can it be? Again, with the directions, watch a couple of YouTube videos. It's like not that crazy, not that insane, very DIY-able. And not only do most modern light fixtures have this dimmable feature, but a lot of those are the smart lighting, and that can be a lot more energy efficient. All right, moving on to what I'm going to call the mid-range cost of these projects. Number one being just smart home upgrades in general. And what I mean by that, a big one, which I think I see all the time, these are becoming so common, is smart thermostats. They're so slick, a great way to save on energy. And if you don't know, they're programmable. So you can do things like, okay, at 6 a.m., I want the house to heat up to 70 degrees. So when you pop out of bed, you're not like absolutely freezing, which I hate more than anything in the world. And then maybe at around 8:30, when everyone's out of the house going to work and school, that thermostat can be programmed to maybe drop down to like 68 during the day. A lot cooler temperature. The house isn't working as hard to keep heat in there when no one's even in there. And then you can have it at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. before your kids get home or whatever. You can have that crank back up to 70 or 71, whatever you want to keep the house at. And that's just a great way to save on your energy bill. Obviously, you can, if you want it to dip down at night and get super cold, but still heat up in the morning so it's not freezing when you wake up. Plenty of options, and it's really cool. A lot of them come with like a mobile app, so you can do it all from your phone too. So, maybe there's a scenario where the whole family goes out on vacation and you're gone for the weekend and you forget that, oh, our thermostat is heating the house back up to 71 and no one's going to be there for 2 days. You can change it straight from your phone, just keep it at 60 whatever until everyone's back, and then let it sit at that colder temperature, and maybe a few hours before you plan to get home, heat it back up. So maybe right before you get back home, it heats up, and then you can come back home to an actual comfortable temperature, not have to do the old song and dance where you come home and crank that thermostat up and then it's absolutely freezing in the house for the first couple hours that everyone's home. And then right in line with the smart thermostats are smart locks and like video doorbells, like Ring doorbells, that are becoming so common with homeowners, not only for resale value and security purposes, but also these are easy things to do. Wiring a thermostat can be tricky, but again, YouTube videos, and if you follow the directions, the information exists. It is out there and you can do it. I think adding smart locks, I've done it. I've added smart locks to a lot of doors. In general, that's pretty easy. Sometimes you have to bust out a couple more tools to kind of make it fit. Maybe there's a really old lock that was on there previously and you have to you know, you can, it's always safe to assume that you're gonna like run into some type of hiccup, but I don't think it's anything that's not manageable. And the video doorbell is kind of the same thing. A lot of those run on battery now, which is super convenient. All you really have to do is mount the bracket, add the batteries, get it in there, link it up with your Wi-Fi, and you're cooking. And again, all these things add to the resale value. They're becoming so common that people like, I wouldn't say they expect it, but it's nice to see when you walk into a home and you're like, oh wow, they got a Ring doorbell already and there's a smart thermostat. Like, heck yeah, that's, you know, very appealing to a lot of buyers. Kind of staying in line with the video doorbell, like the outside curb appeal and things that you can do on the exterior of the house. I think number one is like painting the front door. There's a good chance if you're looking at a fixer upper house, they don't have a brand new, super nice door, which is okay. But I mean, if you don't know, doors are really like kind of insanely expensive. They can be for a nice one. And if buying a new door, installing a new door isn't really in the budget, can of paint's pretty cheap and it takes a few hours, and it does go a really long way to like freshen up that front door, especially from a curb appeal point of view. You can also install new house numbers, which is a very easy fix. 15 minutes tops if you know what you're doing. Super easy. Adding a new mailbox, which kind of seems like a little nutty, but a bad mailbox is a bad mailbox and it doesn't look great. And I think, yeah, maybe a mailbox isn't like a super noticeable thing, but it absolutely doesn't hurt. And curb appeal is very huge in resale value for sure. And then also outdoor lighting, whether that be a new light fixture outside of the house, right by the numbers, or even adding like landscape lighting, which, you know, landscaping can be a whole project on its own, but they make like solar powered lights that you literally just stick it in the ground, and when it gets dark they turn on, and it's super easy. And that adds so much. Like adding some lights up the walkway to your house is like, no pun intended, a night and day difference for sure. And then of course other things like planting flowers and shrubs, or even doing a garden bed, which there are, I mean, an insane amount of videos on that with a lot of ideas. You can look at Pinterest, and a lot of people have gotten super creative in their ideas when it comes to garden beds and things like that. And there are a vast amount of different examples of garden beds that are super easy to construct. And really, I mean, flowers and plants, of course, add so much to the outside of a house and the curb appeal in general. And if you're feeling extra spicy, I love a good flower box right outside of a window. I think the building of those is super easy. Attaching them, kind of, you know, it can get a little tricky depending on what kind of siding you have, how it will attach to the window, things like that. But those go a long way, and it's like, I mean, that's a timeless, classy upgrade to a house. And I think of all of these curb appeal examples that I've mentioned, if you were to take a before and after picture of your house, doing some light landscaping, anything that involves like flowers or shrubs, especially these flower boxes under windows, it is a huge difference. And it's like actually crazy how much it can accentuate, how much detail it can add to the house, and really like class it up, really add value to the outside of the house. Kind of shifting gears a little bit and going back inside, I think creating storage solutions is a very great way to not only personalize your house, but add some serious equity to it. Personally, my algorithm is flooded with people adding bookshelves, storage space, different like really cool DIY cabinets to their house. And I think having storage space is a huge thing that a lot of people look for, because a lot of people have a lot of stuff and you need somewhere to put that stuff. And if you're looking at a house and you're like, oh, I love this house, it's so great, but we wouldn't be able to fit our stuff in here, that can be like a pretty big red flag for a lot of people. It can kind of keep them like, okay, either they're already thinking about, okay, well, here's all this work that we're gonna have to do to like be able to fit our stuff in this house. But if they walk in and they see like really creative ways that people have made storage in their house, that can be like a huge selling point. My personal favorite, I've seen a lot of people add like pull-out cabinets on the stairs, like at the staircase, which I think it's so cool and super convenient. And also it like, you know, it can honestly class up the staircase itself. Instead of just being sheetrock painted, you can add some nice depth with some different cabinet faces, and now you've gained so much storage space. And also people see that and they're like, oh my God, how cool is that? Like, we have all this storage and it's under the stairs, and honestly like gave new life to this area of the room, area of the house. But even something more simpler like floating shelves are, I mean, so easy to install. They look great. I love a floating shelf. And whether those be for storage or just a place to, you know, put a plant and like some knickknacks or whatever, but that really does go a long way. Same with like under bed storage. That's kind of a huge one. It's maybe not the best example of equity in the home. I think that would probably come with you depending on how you do it, how that looks. But in that same vein, like building closet organizers is huge. That can really add a lot of options for space in the closet, or even create more space within the closet if you do it right and you plan it out. Adding storage can definitely be a little more hands-on, definitely requires cutting some wood, maybe cutting into the house a little bit as well. But like I said, I mean, my algorithm is flooded with people doing these DIY storage projects, and there's a lot of really simple solutions that can go such a long way. And then the last thing I want to touch on in this like mid-range cost is installing backsplash. And I know like for a lot of people, me as well, when it comes to tiling, it's kind of like, okay, I have no idea. A wet saw, what is that? You know, things like that. It can be very daunting. But if you are willing to venture into the traditional tile backsplash, it can be very DIY-able. I think it just takes obviously the right tools, but more so than anything, patience. Anytime I've done tile, it's been pretty easy to get super frustrated real quick. But I think I attribute a lot of that to like, I'm pretty stubborn. You know, I'll probably watch 10% of a video and be like, yeah, I can do this. Sure. I've never tiled, but I got it easy. And then, you know, obviously I'm just creating problems for myself. And then inevitably I have to revisit this video because I didn't watch all of it, which I should have in the first place. But that's not to say it's not doable. And if a traditional tile backsplash seems way too daunting, which is a fair assessment, there are different types of, you know, peel and stick tile backsplashes that one are super budget friendly, but also very beginner friendly. You know, that's a great beginner option if doing actual tile seems way too daunting. Something that I've used in the past that I think is actually really great, you can buy like gridded tile sheets that you just stick on the wall, and then you grout in between them. So it's like, it's real tile, but you're not having to individually set all the tile. And then it's just a matter of sticking it on the wall and then doing the grout, which, I mean, adding grout is super easy. For sure, that's probably the easiest part of installing tile. But there are definitely plenty options if you don't want to venture into actually doing real tile. And also adding backsplash, a new backsplash, or updating an existing one goes such a long way in not only the value of that room or wherever it may be, but also, again, a great opportunity to personalize and add your touch to whatever it may be. Okay, and now moving into the more higher cost options in this list, but still very DIY friendly. Number one, I would say, is either installing new floors or refinishing floors. I'm a very big advocate on wood floors. I think it's just a way classier option compared to carpet. And it's pretty common in a lot of homes to see beautiful hardwood floors that were, for some reason, covered up by carpet, which I get. I mean, you know, it's obviously nice to have carpet in a bedroom and things like that, but you know, carpet can just get gross and dingy. And if you don't want to replace carpet and you have hardwood floors underneath, I can't stress enough how much I would say go with the hardwood floors, baby, because it's gonna be a sweet look. It classes up the place and people love to see, I mean, it just looks so much more rich, you know. People love to see just like, oh wow, it's got all hardwood floors, very nice. Refinish them. If someone wants to move in and cover up your hardwood floors with carpet when you're done with all the work that you put in, like, let them. What a shame, but let them, you know. And if hardwood floors aren't your thing, which is totally cool, I mean, it's not for everybody. And you know, like I said, some people don't want hardwood floors in a bedroom, which I totally get. And so with carpets, renting a deep cleaner, if you don't have one, which I'm probably sure a lot of people don't have a carpet deep cleaner on deck or even a steamer, but renting either one of those things for a day or a weekend or whatever it takes and really deep cleaning your carpet is a huge upgrade. It's pretty nutty how much like gross carpet can ruin the vibe of a room. Like a room could be immaculate, baseboard to ceiling, and if they're like dingy looking nasty carpets, like it pulls all the attention away from all the good going on, and you get fixated on the yuck that you're standing on. So that's a great option right after move-in for sure, or before you list your house. Cleaning those carpets, it goes such a long way. And like, you know, it's inevitable. They're gonna get thrashed, they're gonna get stained, all these things. But cleaning those up, getting them back to that original look goes such a long way. But if you're like me and you're not so much a carpet person, installing, then let's talk about the two things that I think you can do with hardwood floors. One is refinishing hardwood floors, which again, very DIYable. I believe anybody can do it, but this for sure takes a lot of patience. And I think the more knowledge, the more research you can do going into it, the better. It's only going to benefit you, because I mean, when you're sanding down wood floors, you can mess them up real quick. But if you've done your research and you know what you're doing, it can be a relatively budget-friendly fix, especially compared to just doing brand new hardwood floors. And like, bringing life back into wood floors, like refreshing those, breathes so much new life into a room. It's like crazy. And refinishing hardwood floors, you know, it's just like a process like anything. Depending on whatever sander you rent, which you will need to in order to refinish them, you just start with a really low grit, and it's kind of like mowing the lawn. Go down nice and easy all the way to the wall with a very low grit sandpaper, like the more rough stuff. And a lot of them will have a way to lift that sander off the ground. So when you get to the end, you can lift it up, walk it back, get your new line, just like you're mowing the lawn. And then you go down, easy peasy. Do that with one grit, then you put on a higher grit or a less rough sandpaper, and you make all your passes. And after that first sand, the floors they'll be really rough and kind of nasty, but as you go through with the finer and finer grit, it'll really smooth out, start to look really nice. And then once everything's sanded and it's real nice and smooth, you can choose to buff the floor, which is just gonna get any of those little imperfections or any remaining marks out of the floor. And then obviously you wanna clean those floors, make sure they're basically spotless before you stain them with whatever color you choose to do. And then you apply a new top coat of whatever finish you want to use. There's quite a few different options as far as finishes for hardwood floors. There's water-based and oil-based polyurethanes. There's something called moisture-cured polyurethanes, which is kind of like the in-between of water-based and oil-based polyurethanes. And it kind of just takes qualities from both of those, blends it together. There's wax finish, which is like the OG, the tried and true wood finish, and it's, to my knowledge, I believe that's probably like the oldest style of finish for a hardwood floor. Fun fact, compared to like all the other finishes, the wax actually like dries the quickest, but it does require like multiple reapplications in order to like get a full proper coat on there. And then there's shellac and varnish. And anyways, there's plenty of options. It's, you know, whatever floats your boat. I would implore you, if you're about to do that, to look into all those and kind of see what's going to be the best for you. But like, that's kind of it. And I shouldn't say that's kind of it. That's still a lot of work, and a lot goes into refinishing hardwood floors, but it's definitely not something that isn't manageable or something that, you know, any DIYer off the street couldn't handle. But if refinishing hardwood floors seems like, okay, that's not something that I want to do at all, which is fair. That's not for everybody. You can always go with the peel and stick vinyl planks for flooring, which honestly, they look great. The installation is so easy, it's insane. And a lot of times you don't even need like a big saw to like cut these vinyl planks. You can score it with like a box cutter or a blade, and they kind of pop right off, just like sheetrock wood. And it's super easy. It goes real quick. And working around like vents, which is a pain in the butt, but vents and just like, you know, cutting them to size is a lot more manageable than new hardwood floors, obviously. And I think in the long run, this is probably a quicker option than refinishing hardwood floors if that seems like too big of an undertaking for you. I think upgrading kitchen countertops is also another great DIY project, whether that be getting something pretty easy to work with like butcher block, which takes some work, but not much more than cutting it to size, securing it to the surface, and adding some type of finish to it. That can be relatively easy, pretty easy thing to wrap your head around and do. I've also seen people do concrete, or you can even resurface the existing countertops, which makes for, a very cost-effective alternative to just absolutely replacing all your countertops. And kind of in line with countertops, maybe not really, but replacing like a bathroom vanity. I feel like it's pretty common to see some old vanities in houses, especially in the fixer-upper range of homes. And that can kind of like, I don't know, you can walk into a bathroom and just be like, ugh, like doesn't look great in here. And I think a lot of that can be because of just like a really outdated bathroom vanity. And this is definitely, it's an undertaking, like it's a project and it's a whole process, but talk about a quick way to like modernize a bathroom just by switching out an old vanity. Vanities can get a little costly depending on what you're looking at, and if there are plumbing adjustments that need to be changed as well, that can definitely start adding up on the cost. And frankly, like plumbing can be a real pain in the butt. But when you're just working on, exterior as in not in a wall, it's definitely doable and something that you can figure out. I think in general, for me at least, any plumbing project takes not one but 2 trips to the hardware store. One to get one right thing and something wrong, and then the second trip is getting the right thing that you didn't really know you needed until you dug into the project anyways, which can be annoying, but it's the way it goes. And in the grand scheme of things, compared to totally redoing a bathroom, like a vanity, like I said, it goes such a long way, and it's nowhere near the cost you're looking at if you're trying to refinish the entire bathroom. And I kind of touched on this one a little bit earlier, not so much, but like replacing doors, and not so much even like exterior doors, but on the inside, like it's pretty common to see hollow core doors inside of a house. Cheap, light, whatever. They don't block a lot of sound, and they also like, it feels cheap. Like you can feel that it's hollow core, but replacing those for something more modern or just like a solid wood door, it's not only going to improve the aesthetics of the house, but also just like the durability. And frankly, like I'm a big stickler on sound and like being able to hear stuff from other rooms and things, and like adding an actual solid door really makes a huge difference with sound dampening. And again, it just like, it feels way better to like open up a solid wood door. You're like, okay, yeah, it just like feels quality when you're looking at houses. If you're in a house, if you're touring homes, looking at houses, and all the doors are like hollow core, it just feels like, it feels not as nice as a solid door would. And I believe that people notice those things for sure, and that can add a lot of value to the house. Also, just aesthetically, again, you got a few more options, and you can really modernize, really spruce up the place by doing new doors like that. Okay, in these next 2 examples, something I'm very well versed in because I've done a lot of them. One, building a deck or a patio. If you have the space, adding a deck, can go so far, not only for resale value, but also just as the person living in the house. To go from not having a deck to having a deck is, luxurious as far as I'm concerned. And maybe I'm a little biased because I've built a lot of decks in my day, but it's like really not that hard. It's kind of, again, if you watch a bunch of videos and you just like understand, there's some certain things that you just need to know about general construction and like how to, properly build something that it has the right support, and the wood's not gonna twist or sink or anything like that. Once you know those rules and wrap your head around that, decks like aren't that crazy. I think constructing it and doing the footings is like probably the hardest part, and also like mapping out how's it gonna fit, making it level, all those things. Like it takes there's a lot of like work that goes into figuring it out and seeing how it's gonna work. But once the bones are there, like slapping on decking and finishing the deck is super easy. It goes super quick. Frankly, I think it's a lot of fun. I love that stuff. And obviously, like, who doesn't want a deck? Who's gonna say, oh, I love the house, but I just wish there wasn't a deck? That's such a bummer. I'd hate to have somewhere to hang out in the backyard. You know, it's like, no one says that. And if building a deck seems too extreme, patios are a great option as well. You can do a simple paver patio, which, I mean, that's truly like, that's a day project. Get a paver patio done. And that adds a lot to the outdoor living space. Also, I think it helps people kind of envision like living in a house a little more too when they walk out in the backyard and they're like, oh, look, there's a nice little patio. We can set the grill up there and have our friends over and bonfire pit, whatever, you know, like all those things. Like, it only adds to the value of the house. And then something that's huge, not only for resale value, but also I think like bringing something from being a house to a home is having a fence in the backyard, whether it be wood, vinyl, or metal. These all increase privacy, which is huge. Maybe not so much a chain link fence, keeps people out, they can still see what's going on. But as far as privacy, like a nice tall wood fence around a yard definitely adds to me like a extra layer of like coziness to a backyard, like gaining that privacy. But fences are also huge in resale value, and a lot of people have pets, they have dogs, and they'll immediately see the added value in a home that has a fence versus one that doesn't. And if there's already a fence, that's like one less potentially huge investment that they would have to deal with when moving into a house that doesn't have one, especially if it's people that aren't looking to DIY anything. Installing a fence like with a professional company gets real expensive real quick, especially if you have a big yard. And I think that can turn a lot of people away if that's kind of something that's very high on their wish list, is like having a fenced in yard. Like I said, I built a lot of decks in my day, and I've also done quite a few fences, just like wood fences. And it takes a lot of work. You're gonna need more tools than you probably think you will in order to get it done. But I mean, building a deck, seeing a finished deck is pretty satisfying. But if you add like a wooden privacy fence around your whole property, that day that it's finally done and you fire up the grill and you sit back and you like look at the fence that you made and you're like, man, look at me go. Like, night and day difference. Such a huge improvement to any house. And like I said, it adds a lot of curb appeal to your property. And that is everything I have on my list. I appreciate you watching. I hope this was helpful. To all my DIYers out there, get it, baby, and good luck. And if I could leave you with any parting wisdom, all I can say is be patient in all of these projects and watch the full YouTube video when you're figuring out how to do this stuff. See you on the next one.